And for our final video for this edition of the Rolling Stone Gang, well, I hate to say it, but Turner Classic Movies is dead. And this strikes me really hard. So, disclaimer, I loved Turner Classic Movies. It was, growing up, it was my favorite channel by far. That and the Disney Channel. But usually I love the Disney Channel because of all the old stuff that they would sometimes show on it, like Zorro with Guy Williams. I think every now and then they would show some of their old movies. I think I saw 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea on the Disney Channel. The Black Hole was on there too. But aside from those things, Turner Classic Movies growing up was my favorite channel. Call me a nerd, a geek, what have you, but it was. I remember watching movies on there with both of my grandmothers when they were alive. I just loved watching those movies. Loved them. I was introduced to them at a very young age. And so they were just part of my childhood growing up. And so I grew up with an appreciation for them. I grew up kind of wanting to watch, for example, The Maltese Falcon or Casablanca. I think I was, 11? Maybe I was 12 the first time I saw Casablanca. Thought that it was so amazing, just loving the dialogue and everything. So I'm a huge classic movie fan, and so I loved Turner Classic Movies. It was an oasis. When there was nothing else on television, there was always something I knew on Turner Classic Movies. And when my parents got rid of cable in the late 90s, that was the channel that I missed the most. I mean, I couldn't care less about all the other channels, but Turner Classic Movies, I still remember actually, back then, you guys might remember this too, before streaming services or anything like that was even in existence, before it had even been dreamed up. In the Saturday edition of the local newspaper, there was the TV Guide, which laid everything out that was going to be on every channel for the coming week. And every Saturday, without fail, I would look at it and to see what was on Turner Classic Movies, even when we had gotten rid of cable. And it was just pretty much kindling for all the good it was going to do us, because again, no channels, there's no reason to look at a TV guide even when it does come with the newspaper. But I would still look at it to see what sort of movies were on, because I just wanted to see what movies were on. And sometimes I would complain, oh my gosh, we're missing such a great movie. So, love movies, love Turner Classic Movies. Well, now Turner Classic Movies is dead, because Turner Classic Movies has decided that it has to get woke. Headline from the UK Daily Mail: Turner Classic Movies adds sexist and racist content warning to 18 movies, including Breakfast at Tiffany's, Psycho, Gone with the Wind, and My Fair Lady. TCM is launching a new series called Reframed: Classic Films in the Rearview Mirror, to look at troubling and problematic aspects of old Hollywood movies. Every Thursday for the month of March, rotating hosts will hold round-table introductions about the history and context of the movie. They will also warn viewers about depictions of racism, sexism, LGBTQ issues. Among the 18 films that will be discussed include Breakfast at Tiffany's, Psycho, Gone with the Wind, My Fair Lady, Stagecoach, The Jazz Singer, and more. Some racism issues that will be tackled include blackface routines and white actors playing non-white roles. The hosts will also discuss sexism in these movies in which men seem to physically or psychologically abuse women. Okay, there is a whole host of things wrong with this right off the bat. Because some of these things, you might be going through that list as I was repeating them, and you might be thinking, well, okay, you can see why they would put Breakfast at Tiffany's on a problematic list, because Mickey Rooney plays, what's his name, Mr. Unicio Unicio, but he's sort of the landlord or the handyman in the apartment that Holly Golightly is living in, along with what's her boyfriend's name? I completely forget now what the actor's name, but anyway, and Mickey Rooney is playing this Japanese character, and it is so stereotypical. I mean, I'm laughing. I'm basically, if anyone is watching from TCM, they would say that this is proof of why they need to do what they're doing. But the thing is, you're not laughing because Mickey Rooney, you're not laughing at an Asian man. You're laughing because the idea of Mickey Rooney playing an Asian man and playing it so over the top, he's hamming it up. He's hamming it up. He's not taking this role seriously, and no one was supposed to take that role seriously. That's what makes it funny. But you might be able to say, okay, I see where My Fair Lady would be on such a list. I see where The Jazz Singer would be on such a list. Although it's the height of irony as to where we have come, where the first movie with spoken dialogue, The Jazz Singer, is now on a problematic list. Yeah, it's true. The Jazz Singer, 1928, I believe, with Al Jolson, was the first movie to have dialogue in it. Al Jol says, "You ain't heard nothing yet." And the fact why it's on a problematic list is because he does a routine in blackface. You might say, okay, if they're going to go through with this nonsense, I can see that. But, Psycho? Another one. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? You're thinking, wait a minute. Psycho? The Alfred Hitchcock classic with Anthony Perkins, where he plays the madman Norman Bates, who has become a pop cultural icon. I mean, holy heck. They just made, 3 or 4 sequels to Hitchcock's original with Anthony Perkins in the 80s. They made a remake of it in 1998. They did a kind of a prequel show a couple of years back called The Bates Hotel. I mean, Anthony Perkins, in the role of Norman Bates, has entered into the cultural consciousness before Michael Myers, before Jason Voorhees, before Freddy Krueger, before the Candyman, before all of them. There was Norman Bates. He was the original. What is that? Why is that, quote-unquote, problematic? Why is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, okay? A movie that stars Sidney Poitier, for crying out loud. Why is this problematic? Well, they say, for example, for Psycho, still from the UK Daily Mail, for Psycho, the hosts talk about transgender identity in the film and implications of equating gender fluidity and dressing in women's clothes with mental illness and violence. It also sparks a bigger conversation about sexuality in Alfred Hitchcock films, because of course we need to get entangled in the idea of sexuality in Alfred Hitchcock's films. We can't simply enjoy Hitchcock's films. We can't simply enjoy the chemistry that Grace Kelly has with Jimmy Stewart in Rear Window, or Cary Grant in To Catch a Thief. We can't enjoy the chemistry, definitely, that Cary Grant has with Eva Marie Saint in North by Northwest, one of my favorite Hitchcock films, by the way, although Rear Window is close. I loved Rear Window because Grace Kelly, confession time, Grace Kelly was one of my first on-screen crushes. I was completely in love with Grace Kelly before I even liked girls. So, I mean, there you go. There's the power of Grace Kelly for you. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is on the problematic list because the hosts will look at aspects of black actor Sidney Poitier's films that are oriented primarily to white audiences. This is what they say. On the night that Guess Who's Coming to Dinner will air, Stewart discusses The complex legacy of actor Sidney Poitier, who plays a black man engaged to a white woman to the horror of her family. His career is so important for the ways that white Americans really started to have more sympathy and understanding for black people, Stewart said. But at the same time, there are aspects of his films that are clearly oriented primarily to white audiences. That opens up all kinds of complications for black viewers who felt that he wasn't a representative of the race as a whole. So in other words, and this gets to the meat and potatoes of this story, gang. In other words, they are enforcing the idea of political blackness onto Sidney Poitier, and especially his acting, and particularly in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Sidney Poitier's character is not politically black. Okay? Heaven forbid that he was a black man who actually had just gotten a job that, white people also happen to have, because he's oriented, quote unquote, towards white viewers. He's not a representative of the race. Never mind that he's played by a black man, a magnificent actor. Sidney Poitier is one of those rare actors who will go down in history because he is just so good. He was born to be either on the stage or in front of a camera. He's a natural talent, and he is electrifying when you watch him. God, he is just so wonderful. He is great. I love Sidney Poitier's movies. But this gets into it. When they say that he is not a representative of the entire black race, they let the cat out of the bag. Not just in reference to that with his political blackness mumbo jumbo, but the whole entire point of this is to take these timeless films and to bring them into the tyranny of the now. We've talked about this before, the tyranny of the now, where there is no past and there is no future, there is only the now. And there is no past because we have completely rewritten the past in order to make it mirror the present, or to say how horrible things were back then. This is why things are so much better now. And by doing that, you also project that onto the future. It's like Orwell said, he who controls the past, he who controls the present controls the past, and he who controls the past controls the future. It's all interconnected. That's what Turner Classic Movies is doing. No one, I think watching Psycho makes the connection between Norman Bates and transgenderism, or cross-dressing or anything like that, because most people who do that also don't have their mother's personality living within them too. These people are separating the plots and the aspects of these characters, completely honing in on one little microscopic facet and blowing it up, making mountains out of molehills for the express purpose so that these films will now reinforce the woke ideology, either by rewriting these films or by making you feel guilty about these films. Turner Classic Movies and its hosts have made a big deal about, oh, no, we don't want people to hate these movies. We love classic movies. Yeah, if you really did, then you would have left them alone, because you would have understood. You wouldn't have even had to explain to people that attitudes and work practices back then, in the old days of Hollywood, were very different than how they are now. So you can either love those movies and accept that the past is a foreign country, or you can hate those movies and just watch, Spider-Man 23, if that's your cup of tea. But what this also does, and this is kind of what also just galls me, it's the little cherry on top, gang, and it's this. They completely ignore the movies that just crush their theory. So their entire theory, of course, is that old Hollywood was rampant with sexism, racism, transphobia, blah, 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 like everything was before our great enlightenment. But in so doing, To take the example of Breakfast at Tiffany's, again, for example, and Mickey Rooney playing a Japanese character, a very over-the-top Japanese character. They're using that as just a flash frame, as in, oh, this is how Hollywood always portrayed Asian people. They always got white guys to play these horribly racist stereotypes of Asian people. When that's not at all the whole story. For example, there's no mention of the 8 Mr. Moto movies that Peter Lorre made with 20th Century Fox between 1937 and 1939. Peter Lorre, yes, a white man, I know, because he was Hungarian, but he plays Mr. Moto, Kentaro Moto. And Mr. Moto, by far, is the smartest, most competent, and bravest character in all of his movies. He's not played for laughs. He often makes all of the white people look like idiots. So the very fact that you had such a positive portrayal of a Japanese character in the 30s would seem, to kind of throw your theory for a loop. At the very least, it would seem to demand that you look it over again. But of course, that's not the point. The same thing goes for Gone with the Wind. Everyone thinks that it's an idyllic homage and a longing for the good old days when people could still have slaves, when it's nothing like that at all. Lou Aguilar has written in the American Spectator, wrote a fantastic piece last year about this very issue, Gone with the Wind, where he says, no, Gone with the Wind isn't lamenting the end of slavery. It's actually, saying that slavery is one of the reasons why the South couldn't defeat the North. And it says that through Clark Gable's character of Rhett Butler, where he says all the South has is cotton, slaves, and arrogance. He's saying, we can't beat the North. We're going to be beaten sooner or later. Yeah, you're all, giddy. We're going to go to war. You all have these highfalutin romantic ideals. It's not going to work, guys, because all that we have is cotton, slaves, and arrogance. We don't have what it takes to win a war. Now, of course, there is a huge barrel of worms opened up right there, because now we're talking about, was that really the situation in the South during the Civil War? We moved from entertainment and the arts to history. But just keeping it at Gone with the Wind, it shows that, no, the movie isn't lamenting the end of slavery. The movie is actually saying that slavery was a cancer on the South. All this that TCM is doing, ignoring the facts, ignoring things that contradict their pet theories, taking these movies horrendously out of focus, turning them just into woke propaganda, telling us why we shouldn't like these movies. This is the death of TCM. Don't watch TCM. If you still have cable, or if you watch it through the app, get rid of it, I would say. Just buy these movies on DVD or VHS if you still have a VCR player. Blu-ray, doesn't matter. Get them before they get canceled. Dr. Seuss and Pepe Le Pew have been canceled. Yes, the Looney Tunes character Pepe Le Pew has also been canceled. I thought about talking about that this week, but didn't get around to it. And just buy these movies and just watch the hell out of them. Watch them, love them, take care of them, preserve them, so that when this insanity finally leaves us, which it will sooner or later, we will still have these timeless films that still speak to us today. That's why we still watch them, because they speak to the human heart and the human condition. Regardless of whether you're black, white, yellow, red, purple, magenta, blue, or you're a Fremen. It doesn't matter. Gang, I have spoken and talked too long as usual, so I'm wrapping it up there. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay free, and I will chat at you all soon. Ciao.